Okay, so update number 2 here, and this is Thomas Crooks from the attempted assassination of then frontrunner Donald Trump, running for his what is now his second term. Tucker Carlson did a little bit. I'm going to go over this on the weekend because it's over a half hour long, and the liberal hive mind has done one that's a little shorter. So first, I'm gonna give you this little thing here.
These are videos the FBI has worked hard to make sure you haven't seen. They're from the Google Drive account of Thomas Crooks, the man who on July 13th, 2024, showed up at the Butler County, Pennsylvania fairgrounds and tried to assassinate the frontrunner, Donald Trump.
And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's...
So you remember at the time of the shooting, the FBI, because Dementia Joe was in charge at that time, the FBI, we don't have anything, no information. This guy is a ghost with no social media background whatsoever. I mean, he literally showed up out of nowhere and decided to kill the president. Now, obviously, that's not the case. He does have a social media presence, and some of that information is being leaked now because even the current FBI is not openly sharing this information with us. Remember, the current FBI has assured us that we will have total transparency. This administration has told us we will have total transparency and we'll know everything we need to know. Now, I'm going to go over what Tucker has found, because this is over a half hour long. This is about 34 minutes grand total. And I'm going to go over it this weekend, but I'm going to go over some of the information the liberal hive mind has found. And we're going to talk about how this kid started apparently as, I don't know if you want to call him conservative, but he was Republican. He started as hating all immigrants, wanted violence against Democrats and immigrants, and was totally this Trump supporter, to COVID happening, and then him turning into a COVID bitch and going far left, and then apparently having communication with an Antifa member who they've been able to get some basic information in order to identify this person, and who ended up radicalizing him the rest of the way for his full turn to leftism, the same as Charlie Kirk shooter. So these people seem to turn into Manchurian candidates. You're going to hear some about this, about their odd change, and how they go from one particular set of ideology to being brainwashed and turned into this Manchurian candidate. For anyone that's unfamiliar about what that is, a Manchurian candidate refers to a person, often a politician, who is manipulated or controlled by external forces, typically acting against their own country's interests. The term originates from the 1959 novel The Manchurian Candidate by Richard Condon, which depicts a brainwashed individual used as a puppet by foreign operatives that is commonly used in political discourse to indicate disloyalty or corruption. So let's get to some of the information that liberal hive mind has.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's your meme of the day, brought to you by 5mind.com. Well, it seems as though all the leftoids, all the people who have been screaming about right-wing extremism for years, it seems like yet again they've taken another narrative L, as we're now apparently getting a document dump. We're getting a bunch of information related to Thomas Crooks, that's the initial attempted assassin of President Trump during the 2024 election, from that very weird rally at Butler, Pennsylvania, where the most obvious roof was unmanned. They let a kid with a rangefinder walk up. But anyways, freaky circumstances aside, it seems like we have a bunch of information about this character, and apparently we now have reason to believe that he was yet again another left-wing LGBTQ furry, just like Tyler Robinson, part of a very similar online left-wing radical profile. And this, of course, comes after the last, what's it been, like a year and a half of Democrats telling us that Thomas Crooks was a Republican. It was right on right violence. Yeah, well, apparently he was just like Tyler Robinson, the Charlie Kirk shooter. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into. Take a look at this pattern. Let's roll the tape. All right, folks. So, of course, the official narrative is that nobody knew who this Thomas Matthew Crooks kid was. The FBI, Secret Service want you to believe that he came out of nowhere, he was a lone wolf, he just happened to pull the trigger and they had no idea, there's no way they could have stopped it. Except it seems that's not exactly true here. Thomas Matthew Crooks was not a ghost, and they likely, in some way or form, had a file on this kid, especially considering his online behavior. I got an article here from the New York Post. Here's where I'm getting all the information. This was written by Miranda Devine. Apparently, this Crooks character was a chronically online, hyper-political nerd who left a digital mountain of red flags, and in the matter of 4 years, probably even less, he went through a full ideological 180. So this, I guess, kind of confirms that in 2020, he was a registered Republican. But between 2020 and then the 2024 shooting, he did a complete flip in terms of his ideology. We now have evidence suggesting that he went from a Trump supporter, a Trump voter, a registered Republican, to an anti-Trump radical furry, and possibly there's an LGBT motive here as well. So just like Tyler Robinson, apparently this character had a profile under the name or the username Epic Microwave or The Epic Microwave. That's on DeviantArt. He used they, them pronouns and was mostly focused on categories such as furry porn and, let's call it gender-bending fetish art. And multiple outlets have now confirmed that the two accounts in question, the Epic Microwave and Epic Microwave, were linked to his primary email. And the accounts show an obsession with hyper-muscular male bodies with female heads and anthropomorphized cartoon characters. And so basically it seems like Crooks followed the exact same pipeline as the Charlie Kirk shooter Tyler Robinson, a teenage outcast, terminally online, who then gets caught up in this, let's say, extreme LGBTQ subculture, and then, of course, likely indoctrinated by all the left-wing rhetoric, matrans genocide, yada, 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 coming for our rights, taking away rights from LGBTQ people, Donald Trump's a fascist, yada yada, and some of these individuals being emotionally unstable, to say the least, then radicalized into the next shooter. And so this is obviously a problem. There's a growing trend, there's something to look at, but the mainstream media is more focused again on the incels and the MAGA extremists and the groypers. But no focus here, right? No focus to the fact that left-wing online culture or, subsects of LGBTQ left-wing culture, those online communities seem to be mass-producing political assassins. Now, of course, they'll just downplay it, pretend as if it has no impact whatsoever. They're too scared to touch it because we're talking about protected groups here. They're more focused on the Facebook boomer who wrote something mean than a literal national security threat, a literal threat, a pipeline towards domestic terrorism. It's not a coincidence, folks. This has become a trend. The left clearly has a violence and radicalism problem, and it's not just the campus protests that turn into riots or the unhinged campus moments where some blue-haired college kid engages in, let's say, varying degrees of assault on campus the moment they see a MAGA hat or a TPUSA setup. No, this is a culture that is fueling the extreme. This is a culture that is telling young, mentally unstable people, in many cases sexually frustrated and confused kids, that politics essentially is some sort of a holy war and that fascists are everywhere and we need to take them out, that cops, ICE agents, and Republicans are open targets, that their words themselves are violence and therefore justify a violent reaction. And so you've got these emotionally susceptible kids who are getting caught up in all this stuff. They're being radicalized in these subsections of the internet. And look at the results. Look at what we're seeing. Add another one to the list. The Bernie bro who shot Steve Scalise, the Antifa thug who executed a Trump supporter in Portland, the other gender-confused person who flew across the country to kill Justice Kavanaugh, Tyler Robinson, now Thomas Crooks, as well as the school mass shooters. Obviously, this is out of control. And what does the left have? They've got these warped studies that use prison crimes to make this claim of evil white supremacy across the nation, white domestic terror threat. No, this is the terror threat, this right here. The media is going to keep screaming about right-wing extremism and the data that backs it up.
So, the question is, was he and are these others Manchurian candidates? Are they being found by government agencies, other foreign countries or actors, and being kind of activated? If you remember the group that tried to kidnap the Minnesota Gretchen Whitmer, and the group was infiltrated by the FBI. It ended up being a couple of FBI either informants or agents that got into the group and actually essentially pushed them into taking the action. So they were put into a group of I guess white guys that were anti-government, were upset about what was going on, but would normally just kind of sit around smoking weed or drinking or doing whatever and bitching about what was going on, but not taking it to the next level. And then these FBI agents infiltrated or were told to become part of this group and ended up radicalizing them more and pushing them into the action of making an attempt to kidnap the governor. Now, of course, that did, they weren't actually able to follow through with it because the FBI was part of the whole planning. Gretchen Whitmer was not home at the time of the attempt, and they were arrested when they showed up at the house with the intentions of kidnapping her. But it was the FBI that infiltrated the group and then pushed them to the next level, which was illegal. You can't artificially promote a person or group to take a particular type of action. In order for that to be, the proper violation of the law, they need to take the action and go through it, or attempt to go through it organically, not propped up and pushed by you in order for it to happen. So the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping was pushed by these inside sources within the government, within the FBI, in order to make that happen. That was proven. Now you have these shooters, the one in Butler, Pennsylvania, who were getting more information now that was online and was radicalized by this mystery person from Antifa. And you have the same or similar situation with the shooter in Utah of Charlie Kirk. Once again, getting it, not only being a freako weirdo with a trans boyfriend himself, but being in touch with Antifa and being pushed and radicalized to this action too. It's as if they are creating and then activating sleeper agents in order to take these actions. And you see it as the most just losers and weirdos and nobodies that people don't want to be associated with. They're the dregs of society. So the perfect people to use and dispose of, that ends up being your perfect Manchurian candidate. People that they've been completely disregarded. No one particularly cares about them. No one's going to particularly miss them when they're gone either. And you're starting to see this pattern of these assassins, these radicals that are going out there with these connections with Antifa. And then we're trying to figure out where the funding for Antifa is coming from. Who are their backers that they're getting their information or marching orders from, right? That's coming from somewhere. They're at their protests and all the bullshit that they do, they're a little too organized and they're a little too where they need to be for protests and ICE facilities and everywhere else. It isn't just the dregs and the losers that are there. They're certainly present. But there's the others that are putting this together and how well it's managed. So this weekend I'm going to go over the more detailed information that Tucker Carlson has come up with to take a look at the additional information we have on this kid, and you can share some of your own thoughts and make your own decisions on what's going on with these people and how they're getting into these positions, how they're finding just the right amount of luck to get on top of a building, to get situated somewhere, to Thomas Crooks just happened to get on top of a building that wasn't being properly monitored by the Secret Service, was almost ignored, is allowed to flow a drone over an area and be completely ignored as well. And incompetence factors in. People aren't perfect. You hire incompetent people in the Secret Service and they can be lacking. That's true in any place, in any business. But it's just a very convenient set of circumstances that provides an opening for these people to make their attempt to go after a high-profile person or someone that someone else wants removed. So this is definitely a situation we need to look at, and more information we need, and that it needs more exposure. I'll go over that this weekend. That's what I've got for you for now, and I'll talk to you all real soon.